Are you hydrated?
I am hydrated, ready to roll.
Good, I've got my skull.
Oh, that's great.
What else have I got? Oh, you like this one?
I do like that one. Yeah, it's very good.
So, how are you?
Really good. Yeah, really good. It feels like, I don't know, at this time, it just feels like we're coming into something more positive
Yeah.
in general in life.
Where are you in the world right now?
So right now I'm in London. I'm in Fulham in London, first day. Because I live in Brighton, well, from Brighton, yesterday just packed up all of the stuff. Everything's either gone into storage or gone or been taken. And so I now live, myself and Ella live out of suitcases, and we're about to go back to Mexico in order to go back to Nashville.
Okay.
So
So, where do you actually class as
it's a good
home then?
question. Where do we live? Well, we don't anymore. I mean, technically, what happened was we were about to move to New York, and then right at the point where we were just going through all the visa process, and then coronavirus hit, and at that
Right.
point, we just said, "Look, let's just give it a couple of weeks. This will all blow over, and everything will be fine." And then we just got stuck, and so we were stuck in a place where we'd already started building all of the stuff in New York at the time, and then having to deal with all the stuff over here. So we're in no man's land right up until, well, kind of now really. And so now we've got enough that we can, with the visa and everything, to be able to get across and go and live in Nashville, we think.
So, why are you moving to America then? Is that just for your career wise or?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I feel like, I moved to Brighton a long time ago. I moved into Brighton to build a music college. That music college is still there. It's 3 streets away from my house. I've had built other businesses. I have a management company and an agency, and I just felt like the time was right to move. So we talked about different areas, and I just thought, now's the time. There's never going to be the perfect time to move, but I just thought, why not try and do something different? I felt like I'd done quite a lot in the UK. I thought, let's go somewhere different. New York always seemed like a good idea. It's something I've always wanted to do, is go and move to New York. And then with all of the stuff that's happening in America, in New York especially, I just thought, let's just pause the New York thing. We'll get there eventually. So we're going to go kind of via Nashville and then see how
So
that
you're going to
goes.
sort of
But
move there temporarily or?
I think so. I mean, it's such a crazy, it's been such a crazy 12 months, 15 months, that at the moment, nothing is set in stone. Everything is very much just, we're almost kind of living month by month. We spent a lot of time in Mexico. We just got back. We spent 3 months in Mexico, just so that we were in a place where we could just shut ourselves away and just build a business and look after people and do that kind of stuff. So we did that, and now we've come back for a bunch of life admin. Now that we're allowed to kind of see a few people from the lockdowns, we've come back in, see some friends and family before we go back again. So, but yeah, it's been the weirdest year of
But
my
as a
life.
content creator though, it doesn't really matter where you are because stuff you put out
Yeah.
you can do anywhere. So
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's such a great time, isn't it? It means that, with the amount of technology that's there, we can be in control of the work we do and the schedule that we have, and so, people aren't in offices the same way as they used to be. And, how will that come back? And, people are so much more in control. There's a great story where when this whole lockdown started across the world, Scooter Braun just went and invested in studios for every single one of his artists and just went, we don't know what's happening. You need to get good at this stuff just in case. And it was like, you've now got a home studio, so have fun. I thought it was a great idea.
yeah, I really love your content. I think it's very
Oh, thanks.
direct and to the point, and you're always asking the juicy questions that most musicians are asking. But where has this come from? Why is it so important for you to help musicians?
I think, do you know what? I think it started for me because when we started, so I started a music college called BIMM, which was the Brighton Institute of Modern Music. Now it's the British Institute. I started in my living room. And before that, I worked at another music college in Guildford, called ACM, where I was there for a couple of years. And so my story was slightly different to everyone else's. All of these people that we used to hire that had sold millions of albums. And I was one of the kind of forgotten people who did get signed, but then nothing happened. So, record labels will sign so many artists. They'll sign, you know, 50, 60, 70 artists, knowing that only 2, 3, or 4 of them might actually do anything.
Bandwagon stuff, isn't it?
Absolutely. So when we got signed, I was like 18 years old. I was just like, that's it. We're going to be famous and I'm going to be rich.
As everyone does. Course,
as everyone does. And then at that point, 9 months later, it wasn't even that long of a reign. All of a sudden it's like, we're signed, we've achieved it, we've done it. And then 9 months later, we were not signed anymore. We were dropped, and at that point you are forgotten. And I remember thinking, I'm not ready to give up. I don't know what I have to do. And so for me, as a bass player, I'm from Swansea in Wales. I was just like, I'm just going to play. I'm not going to get a job because
why would you?
Why would I want to do that? So I'll figure it out. And so it was like, I will play anywhere for anyone, and from that, then just making a living from playing bass, and you get your CV moments that everybody wants to talk about, but 99% of your work is still going to play in anywhere, just pubs, clubs. The first couple of years of my career was playing in social clubs, which was like, I was like 19, 20, 21, but I was like, this is great. I play 3 hours a night, I get paid. And back then as well, as as a bass player, the music was very set up for like bass players.
We're talking 20 years ago.
Yeah, we're talking like we're back in the day before everyone played, kind of like before wedding stuff became a big thing, and it was like everyone played disco. Basically, I was playing like I was playing Chic, Bernard Edwards, Verdi and White, Earth, Wind and Fire, and I'm like, I was the guy on stage. I was like, this is amazing.
That's some funky bass, that.
Yeah, I was like, I loved it. So that was like a big part of it. But for me, I was like the guy. When we started BIMM, I always felt the most like I related to the students, because I was like, I've sat where you sit, I've done this, and I know that I was prepared to do absolutely whatever it takes. The problem is nobody tells you what that is.
No.
So if you want to get guitar lessons, someone will sit down and they'll say, right, hang on, if you want to play really fast, you have to play really slow. This is vibrato, this is a chord, this is a scale. Absolutely. When it comes to the music industry, everyone just says, good luck. And then what they do is they say, good luck. And then when you bring me your music, there'll be this person that has this kind of Julius Caesar kind of like, no.
Kill him.
And at that point, kill him. And you're like, oh, it's gone. That's it. So no one tells you why. And the thing is you get to kind of, once you've been in the music industry or around the music industry for a long time, you get to 30 and you go, oh, I figured this out. But by that point, you go, oh, I can't be asked anymore.
Or you've got life creeping up on you, like
that's
marriage,
what I mean. Yeah,
kids, like
absolutely
bills to pay. So, it's kind of a priority.
And that's where it started. And then what happened was, over a period of time, then the age thing became less relevant, because all of a sudden it was like, well, it doesn't matter if you're 30, 40 or 50, which it did when I was a kid, because record labels they weren't signing anyone over 25, let alone anyone at 40.
It was a young man's game.
Yeah, whereas now it's like, well, it doesn't matter. You can be whatever age you want. That makes no difference at all. So, that's very handy, because it means that not only are you completely in control, back in the day when, you used to buy records from Woolworths, and that at that point you walk past your pick and mix. Well, in order for them to get to that shop, that HMV, that Hour Price, that Woolworths, any of those stores, then a big truck would have to come along, and they'd have to pick up probably 300 CDs and deliver it to every single shop in the whole country, and it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars or pounds. And now we're in this position where we just go, oh no, it's just $20. I'll just whack it on these distributions, and I can do this all myself.
What you were saying about no one tells you, like when you get to music, and it's a bit like sometimes I felt what school was like. They didn't tell you certain things like, what's a credit card, what's interest rates, how do mortgages work, how to change a tire, how do you check your car oil, basic stuff out. But I like new angles and how to use protractors and stuff. And it's like life skills.
It's so true, isn't it? It's so true. And that was the bit. And I remember even at music college, back in the day, people would go to music college and they'd be like, right, let's look at what's in a record contract. And I'd be thinking, no, it's how to get a record contract, not what's in a record contract.
Well, it should be both, shouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, if you're going to sit there and tell me what's in a record contract without me actually knowing how I'm going to go and get one.
How do you earn one?
Exactly. How do you earn one? So it's like all of those things. And a lot of the time it's because you just don't have the skills. You just don't know.
Yeah. So is that then you realized there was a lot of lessons that needed to be learned, and like obviously you've learned them yourself and mistakes that you've made, and so you felt you had it in you to like pass that on to other people.
Yeah, I feel like, weirdly enough, from my point of view, when we first started the music college, my part wasn't the music business. That wasn't something that I really had the most sort of specialist field in. My bit was the musicianship. So my job was to teach, live performance workshops or session styles for bass players or those kind of things. And so, I would be, I would go in and actually teach musicians and teach bass players and teach bands. So when it comes to the music business side of things, from being around it quite a lot, then I'd be helping bands, and then after a while you start figuring this stuff out. And then it was actually, weirdly enough, whilst I was teaching musicians and bands, it was social media cropped up, and me being in businesses, setting up businesses, building businesses, all of a sudden I was like, oh God, I need to know the social media thing. So the actual way it started for me was I started doing what I've done for the last 20 years, which is basically help musicians. And I just thought to myself, I will do this instead of in a coffee shop. I'll do this via YouTube and Facebook, and this will help me learn how to use this stuff, which I was on tour. And I remember thinking, I don't have any social media at all, like nothing. So I don't care for social media. I'm always on tour. And so it wasn't something I did. So I needed to learn it. And as I started to do more of this sort of putting stuff out there, what weird thing is musicians started coming to me for advice on the social media aspect of stuff.
Right.
And I remember thinking, oh, I'm not the social media guy.
Don't ask me.
Yeah. I was like, no, I'm the music industry guy. And people were going, and then there's just weird time where it just merged together in this really kind of weird time where it was like, oh, it's the same thing now. You get to control your audience. Like imagine if this was like 1999 and someone said, where's your audience? Well, they're all over the world. And you go, no, they're all in this phone right here, all of them. I can get hold of any of them right now.
Yeah.
How much is that worth to you? You'd be like, anything, like all of it, all of the money. Like it's insane.
Yeah.
Whereas at the time, it was all about, trying to get into a magazine, or if we could get on radio. And now it's like, I can actually target people in different parts of the world. It's so amazing.
The other side of it for musicians though is that, it's easier to like home record and put videos out, but it's also saturated with everyone who can do that now quite as easy. So it's what do you do to rise above everyone else and stand out?
Yeah, and that's the key. And so for me, this is the interesting thing, because what happens is, as musicians, and me being one as well, sometimes I fall into this. We're very traditional. We like traditional things. So for me, I play a P bass. I've got two AD200 orange valve amps and two Ampeg 4x10s. Pedal board, tuner. And I'm old school. And I'm like traditional. Yeah. But when it comes to what we're doing, when it comes to releasing music, is we can't be traditional because the music industry's changed. And so what we've got to do is we've got to be looking at pushing the boundaries and innovating, because we're in this gray area. The music industry, I think people says this new music industry, and it's like, no, the music industry is in this change, and it's going to take some time before we can fully see the change, and we're in control of it as musicians. And so the content that we put out, the way we release, is really, really important. So right now, if you look at this moment in time, a shift has happened more so in the last 6 to 8 weeks than I've seen in the last year, which is probably due to the coronavirus. But music is now attached to so many videos for the big artists that they're saying, look, we know the music's really important. We get that. But we also live in a society where everyone is saying, what's next, what's next, what's next? So I want to play my computer game. I want to watch some videos. I want to go on social media. I want to go on Netflix. It's just give me. Yeah. And so when you say, have you seen my new video? They go, yep, seen it. Have you seen that new film? Yes, seen it. We don't go back and watch these films time and again like we used to back in the day.
I don't think younger people don't do that now the way we did.
Yeah. So because of that, we have to change our strategy. The videos are still important. And whereas, back in the day, it was like, oh, I'd go and watch MTV or MTV2 or Scuzz or Kerrang or any of those music channels, and there'd be a loop of the same videos going around.
But they were the only places you could get those.
Absolutely. And so what's really interesting now is it's more a case of, I've seen your video. So now what do I put out the next day? Well, it needs to be the same song, but something else that's attached to another video.
Yeah.
So you'll get artists who are releasing songs and then having 10 videos to promote one song instead
Yeah.
of one video, one song. And it's really interesting because the song becomes content in itself, the video becomes content, but it's like, and tomorrow I'll have something else that will attach it, because I know that if I have to get this song into my life playlist, then I've probably got to listen to it 5 or 6 or 7 times, unless I completely love the artist. I've probably got to listen to it a bunch of times before I get in the car, I hook up my pods and I just go, or the radio or whatever. I go to the gym. What am I going to listen to? That new song that I've heard a bunch of times. We don't do that after one listen. We do it after 5 or 6 or 7.
It's going to be interesting to see if, especially this last year when there's been no gigs, have artists done enough of that to, when they finally go on tour, have they done enough to make these people get off their artists, pay some money to go and see them live? Yeah,
I think it's going to be a big one. I think there's going to be such a desperate need for people to go out live, but just like everything else, and this is where the tradition comes in. As musicians, and I would class myself as one of these things, we do tend to harp on about the good old days quite a lot.
I think that comes with age, to be fair.
Yeah, it does. And so what happens is, when it comes to social media is saturated. Well, it is, but at the same point, ads isn't saturated yet. Everyone thinks it is, but it's not. We've gone through the golden age of organic growth, and now it's not there. And everyone's going, oh, it's not like it used to be. No, it's not. But I can tell you that it's not like it used to be in 2004, when it cost me £1,000 every month to advertise in Guitarist magazine, and I was advertising in 7 magazines.
Wow.
And there was like 15 to 64-year-olds that would buy the magazine, and I'm just trying to get 18 and 19-year-olds. So I'm paying for all of these people. It's costing.
What were you advertising at the time?
BIMM. I was advertising the music college.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to get to 18 and 19-year-olds, and we're paying for all of these people to see it. And now, if I said, no, I just want people who are doing music A-level, for example, who are 18 and 19, I just pay for that. I just pay for, and I want them to be in, I want them to be in the north of England. I mean, it's insane what you can do with advertising.
The targeting tools just really.
And so we're in this golden age. And my fear is musicians are harping so much about the good old days of organic reach is not there and there's too much noise, that they're missing out on this golden time, which won't be there in 2 or 3 years. And there'll be something else that'll come along and everyone will be harping on about it.
I still think the core of it is doing enough to make people come and see you live, though. That's never going to change.
I hope so, because I saw this amazing thing the other day on someone's Facebook. I should repost it, but it was like a price list that had been typed up from, I think it was probably the 60s or 70s, and it had all of the biggest bands, and it was things like Pink Floyd, Fleetwood Mac, Deep Purple, and how much they cost if you wanted to hire them to come and play. Right. And Fleetwood Mac was the most expensive at £500. Pink Floyd was £200, and I was like, that's a bargain. Now a ticket's going to cost you 150 quid, let alone the entire band.
The top tier ones are, definitely.
Yeah. So if you look at it was a case of, where do you make money? Well, you make money through records, because that's where the price is. That's where the profit is. Whereas now it's tickets. And so again, the tradition, we just go, oh, no one's buying music. I did this one piece of video a couple of years back, and it was called Stop Selling Music. In my head,
I've got it somewhere. I've got both your books.
Oh, thanks. Well, in my head, when I made the first video, Stop Selling Music, it was like, that wasn't even the point. It was like, well, obviously stop selling music. Now no one's buying music. And I had such a backlash, like proper people.
I had
unbelievable
people on the podcast when I was in the studio, when I just got your book, and I don't always have musicians on anymore. I'm kind of broad, but back then it was always musicians. And I would bring it up, and I'd like just get them to read it while we were setting up and stuff. And it always brought on this huge debate where some people had never thought of that before and went, that actually makes sense. And other people go, nah, that's just, how can you do that? You know what I mean? So it was really interesting.
But what was really interesting for me was like, I didn't mean it to be a debate. I was like, look, people don't buy music. Let's go and figure something else out. And everyone was like, hang on, what are you saying? And I was like, nobody buys music, as in, there's no record shops, there's no CDs anymore. Like CDs have gone from like $1 billion industry in 2001 through to 50 million in 2018 or something. Like, it's just not a thing. And people pay $10 to get all of the music in the entire world on Spotify. It was like I'd predicted the future. It was like, oh, it wasn't my fault. I didn't do this. I'm just telling you what people are doing.
So you get people angry at you?
I had death threats from it. It was crazy. I was like, this is weird. And even
those people, I don't think they understood what you were saying.
I think so. Yeah, it's probably my terrible teaching at the time.
They've probably, like a lot of people, read the headline and haven't read what you're actually saying.
Absolutely, yeah, and it was crazy. But what was interesting is, we have this kind of traditional thinking, even though the facts are in front of us. It's like, well, people do, whether we like it or not. It's not my fault. People don't buy music. When was the last time someone said? And then we'd get someone who went, actually, I buy CDs all the time. And when I said, how many have you bought? They said, well, I've bought at least 2 this year. And I was thinking, no. When I was 15, every Saturday, I'd buy 5 CDs. It's a big difference.
And just sometimes just from what the artwork was on it.
Absolutely, 100%. And so, we've got to look at this time where it's like, we can make money as artists. There's a lot of money. If you look at artists like Russ, for example, when everyone says, oh, streaming, there's no money in streaming, Russ will say, well, I'm making millions. The difference being is Russ is playing the streaming game, and everyone else is playing the selling music game and throwing it onto Spotify and wondering why it's not there.
Yeah.
And so, if you look at the top 10 artists at this moment in time on Spotify, only one of those artists has less than 100 songs on Spotify, and that's Post Malone. If you look at Drake, he's got like 225 songs. If you look at Ed Sheeran, he's got like 180 something songs. Yeah. Whereas most artists, up and coming artists who haven't got that many streams, are saying, well, I've got my album and I'm not making enough money. And I totally get it. And I am 100% in the belief that musicians should get paid more for their music. I totally believe that.
I agree.
But at the same point, they don't. So it's like, what are we going to do about it? Which is the message. And so therefore, it's like, whilst we're figuring that out, let's not wait, because it might be 5 years and we can't miss the boat. But people are spending money on tickets. They are spending money on merch. They are spending money on Patreon. They are spending money on artists and art. We've got to monetize in the right way. And instead of saying, I'll do a little bit of everything, which never works, what we do is we say, no, I'm going to monetize by doing what Russ does and play the streaming game. Therefore, I'm going to put a new song out every week. Or I'm going to monetize by building the audience, and I'm going to have a membership, or I'm going to have a Patreon, or I'm going to have a merch page. Chance the Rapper, he makes $6 million a year in hat sales. From his music. And people say it should be about the music. It is. People buy it because they love his music, but they want a hat.
Of course. If you've got a lot of fans, they want anything.
Absolutely. And the music is, the music is first. The music I listen to, I'm still listening to all of the time. I love music. I consume lots and lots of music. And so, but how do I attach myself? Well, I attach myself via the social currency, where I will wear, a Foo Fighters t-shirt because I'm like, I love the Foos, I love Biffy Clyro or System of a Down. It's like, I want people to know because that's my identity, and I'm attaching myself to the brand. And is it about the music? 100%. I listen to the music all the time.
Well, it's like what you were saying about that. The album has all these things like brands and products and hats. It's because the album isn't there to be bought anymore, really. So they have to. That revenue has to be replaced by something. So that's the artists playing the game.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's playing the game, and I was with an artist last week who's quite a successful DJ. He's got 4 labels. He doesn't own them, but it's different distribution deals around the world. And I sort of sat with him and I said, "What do these labels do then?" Because just explain it, because he'd asked me for some help. He went through it, and I was like, "So basically, they upload your music to Spotify? Is this what they do?" I was like, because I couldn't figure anything else out. I was like, they're not putting you anywhere. I was like, who pays for the PR? He said, me. So I was like, who books the gigs? Me. So I was like, so what do they do? And he was like, I think they do some, like, they try and get me on playlists. So I looked at his biggest playlists. At the end of the day,
he should know what they do.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And I was like, so how much, what's the deal? It was like 50-50 split. I was like, I'll take 50% of your earnings for uploading some stuff to Spotify. I'll do that, no problem. And I'm not saying every label is like this, but we live in a different time. We have control. We have control to make money as artists. We have control to put music out. We have control to build audiences. We have control to get in front of people and get in front of people in the right way. It's up to us whether we do that or whether we want to hand the reins to someone else. But the control and the power has never, ever been there like it is right now.
Yeah.
And I personally believe that it won't be there forever. I feel like it will get to a point like TV, for example, where, if you want to advertise on TV, it's going to cost thousands and thousands. We can't afford it. So I think it'll get to the point eventually where this golden time will go away and everyone's so concerned about growing organically that they're not just saying, I don't care about how I grow, as long as I grow enough to be able to make money and make a living from what I love to do, which is my art. That to me is the most important thing. I want every artist and every musician to be able to, I hate the most? I hate it when I walk into like a Starbucks or a shop and someone is there and I'll recognize them as someone who's an artist or a musician, and, or they'll say, oh, I watch your channel. And in my head, I'm like, I wish you could make money from this easier. And it is difficult, but I don't like the fact that people have to have this as a hobby. It shouldn't be that. It should be, if you can build the audience, you can monetize and you can build that audience.
I think
it's going to be hard,
most
but
artists are capable of cultivating a small enough hardcore audience who will like perpetuate their survival. And it just takes a bit of work. And I think that's why people need people like you to sort of guide them in the right direction and tell them what they shouldn't do, because you've had a lot of those pitfalls. Absolutely.
I think when it comes to, the other thing as well is we do live in a time where we do need some tough love, because, we're allowed to do anything. That's the one issue, is like everyone's allowed to do anything that they want. And so most people will will work hard, but we're like kids in sweet shops. Clubhouse comes along and everyone's like, this is the thing, we've got to jump on Clubhouse. And I'm like, why is Clubhouse? Where's the music? I'm not saying it's a bad thing, Clubhouse, but I'm like, where's the strategy in this? What you're saying you want to be a performing artist that releases music. Where's Clubhouse fit into that?
It's just going on the back of the TikTok thing, isn't it?
Exactly. It's jumping on, and it's so weird, and you've got
all of those things have a short life shelf life. I would imagine.
I love Gary Vee. I think he's amazing. But he's brilliant. He's amazing. But at the same point, this idea that, and I'm not saying he says this, but this what people will take from him is, you need to be on every social media. You need to be putting out 50 pieces of content every day. When you're a creative, that all I'm hearing is mental health. I'm hearing anxiety. I'm talking to musicians that are going, pressure. Yeah, I can't. And he's just going, no, just document. And you're going, but I'm a creator. I create. That's what I do. And, just creating once a week on YouTube is stressful. I can't imagine what it's like when you're trying to do, YouTube and TikTok and SoundCloud and Spotify and, and Instagram. It's like, oh my God, let's just calm things down, because we're like kids in sweet shops, and let's just build something that's sustainable over one or two platforms that we can then utilize that into a long-term strategy. Because it's like tensing a muscle. When you're trying to do this with the best organization and the best will in the world, if you're trying to do too much whilst releasing lots of music, even with the best systems in the world and with some budget, how long can you tense that muscle for before you give up and just go, oh, I've had enough. I can't do this anymore. It's got to be fun.
Yeah. Going back to the album thing, I've been out of the game a few years now, but it always seemed to me in the last 10, 15 years, in terms of getting a record deal of one of the big boys, it always seemed like the artist would have to pretty much do 90% of the work before they'd even notice you, and then they would just sort of scoop you up once you'd done all the work and just take advantage of that situation. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I talk to artists regularly that are coming to me saying I've been offered some kind of deal, sometimes with a big one. I mean, one thing that's difficult, I would say, is when you get offered a deal from Universal or Sony or Warner or some, a big level, a big industry deal. It's hard to say no. I understand that. I mean, it's like
dangling the carrot in front of the.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you play football and you're doing really well at a club, and then Man United come knocking at the door, you're not thinking to yourself, I might rot in the reserves. You're like, Man United, this is going to be amazing. Yeah. So, I understand that. But when it comes to a lot of the time, when it comes to labels pick you up because they see that they can inflate something.
Yeah.
And so, there's nothing wrong. I am not someone who says don't sign a record deal. I don't believe that, because there's a lot of record labels out there that will absolutely be the right thing for the right person. You have to see it for what it is. It is very much a business deal, and you can come out of this talking to artists that have come out of the back of a record deal and feeling like life is over with their music career. And I'm like, no, you just won the lottery. You've got your audience who knows who you are, and now you're in control. So, for me, you do have a lot of people. I had someone literally this morning who messaged, who's struggling because the label and the PR side of what they do just aren't living up to what they expect, because there's huge expectations. And I'm like, well, you've got to take control of this. This is your career, it's your music and your audience now. So this is up to you. How much music you put out, how you put the music out. If it's not working, you don't get many shots at this. You don't get many bites at the cherry. So
don't wait.
Don't wait. You got to make some decisions. So I think when it comes to big labels, it's hard to say no, but you also need to realize that you have to have the leverage. If you are coming into this saying, hey, I've got 150,000 really dedicated fans on my Instagram, and a label comes in, you can say, what are you going to do for me? Kanye West signs
your court.
Absolutely. Kanye signs his next record deal. Very different position to where he was with the first record deal. He's going, everyone knows who I am. I ran for president. So if you're going to sign me to the next deal, what do I get? Show me the money, show me the contract. What is it in, because I've got the leverage. If you sign too early, you have no leverage, and then you get spat out, the old X Factor thing. You get brought in, spat out. You can't complain about it. So you have to take control. You have to build the audience. The word is control. You have to be the one that says, I will build something. And then if I want someone to come into my party and help me and take part of that, then it's up to me. But I'm not signing the rights away to all my stuff like the old days back in the day, where you have these massive artists who just, who sell millions of albums. And I know this bit well, purely because I was the guy who hired people who've sold 2 to 5 million albums, come out the other end, and all of a sudden their attic conversion,
plumbers and
they're going, I used to play Wembley Stadium, and I'm like, well, your choices now are come and work with me and teach at BIMM, or carry on building them attics. So hopefully those stories will start to become less, hopefully, over time.
Yeah. So do you know what sort of contracts would big record labels be offering artists these days?
I mean, if I were a big label, I would be looking at, locking in as much as possible. And because, a lot of big labels will own big playlists, so that they will have leverage. So it's very much worth it for an artist to sign to a big label, because you never know the power that they've got. But, if you're going to go with a 360 deal, the last thing you want to do as an artist is start losing your merch, or start losing your depending on your ticket prices. If you've got a really good manager and the manager's taking 20%, I mean, think of it like this. Let's say you're in a band, and there's 4 of you in that band, but you've got a manager who takes 20%. So effectively, that's 5 lots of 20%. You're on 20%. So it means if you want to be on 20 grand a year, that means before taxes, before anything else, you've already got to make 100 grand a year. And you think that's a lot of money to make, when it comes to streaming and everything else. So, in which case you need to start thinking of how that money is going to come in, because if the label's involved, they're probably going to want to take a lot of that. Plus, and you get stories all the time. I had this, when you're signed, you're sat in a big celebratory party because you've signed a record deal, and all of a sudden, Karen from HR's there and everyone else is drinking their champagne. You're like, this is amazing. What you don't realize is you're paying for that champagne.
It's all on your dime.
They're drinking it. You're paying for it, and they're probably on time and a half while there as well. So you're like, this is an expensive party. I have to sell a lot of records to make this work.
It's funny that whole rock and roll lifestyle thing doesn't exist anymore, does it? It does in sort of perception of videos and stuff, but like, the only at the very top end, the private jets and the booze and the all that stuff.
Yeah,
musicians have got to be business people right from day one at the same time.
Yeah. But the best bit about it is, because you're right, that lifestyle doesn't exist in the same way that it used to. I mean, it used to be crazy money, and it still does at the top end. But what I would say is now you're getting a lot more people who are making a lot of money in the middle section. And I
Yeah.
love that, because it used to be, yes, Bon Jovi have got a private jet and everyone else is skint. And now it's like, yeah, we've got, we've got Kanye and all those at the top,
Yeah.
but there's so many people that you and I have no idea who they are, and they're still turning over 100 grand because they know how to play the game when it comes to the streaming platforms, when it comes to YouTube, when it comes to selling merch, when it comes to Patreon. There's loads and loads of these DIY artists that have gone from, well, I was earning 30 grand a year at my job, but now I'm earning 100 grand, because what we hear about is I was earning 30 grand a year and I can't live off £5 a day. And there's plenty of them that have figured it out. Our job is to say, what have they done? How did that work? And how can I jump on that bandwagon I can build it, and have patience, because it does take time.
So let me ask you this. So are artists these days focusing on albums rather than just putting out songs? And should they be?
I think the times are definitely changing. They are, the tide is turning, and people are realizing. So I was a radio DJ for about nearly 2 years, a year and a half to 2 years. And it was myself and a friend of mine who's in a band called Skunk Anansie called Ace. And we had this radio show. It was really, really fun. And so people would come in, and our job was kind of like, it's kind of local Zane Lowe. That was our whole purpose, was like to feed, art students and upcoming artists into the system, interview them, get their music played so they can start to get to grips with this. And so every day people would be handing me, CDs or sending me albums. The interesting thing with this is I'd always say the same thing, even back then. If you give me an album, I'm this excited. I go, oh, brilliant, this is exciting. I can play this. And I will play it for a couple of weeks before I get bored and I'm on to the next thing. If you give me one song, I'm the same amount of excited. If you give me 10 songs, I'm not 10 times as excited. And I'll play that song a bunch of times over the next couple of weeks. So if we've spent all of that time working on an album to then promote it, and everyone goes, I love it, thanks. And we're in this time of what's next. And you go, what do you mean what's next? It's taken me 6 months to get this together. What's next is I go away for 6 months. And I go, oh, okay, then see you in 6 months. Whereas if you said, here's my song, or what's really popular at the moment is 2 songs. You get a lot of artists that are now, the fashion is to release 2 singles at a time. So you can bounce off each other when you're making content. And when you go and do one video, you make 2 at a time. It's very smart thinking. But because of that, you're looking at, you're looking at artists now who are effectively building their strategy in a different way around one song at a time, saying, you'll be bored of this in 3 weeks, but you know what's going to happen? There's going to be another one.
Yeah.
And then I'm excited again.
That makes sense. But I've always, obviously, we're just older. I was a fan of the body of work that someone's putting in, listening really to it as they've intended.
I agree. And do you know what I would say is, I would say albums are just as important as they ever have been, as long as, and this is the key thing, as long as you can keep putting out enough content, and as long as you're giving it out to people in a certain way. So, I'm a big fan of Scooter Braun. I think he's probably the best when it comes to strategist, when it comes to music industry. And so, yes, he manages Justin Bieber, and I'm not saying most credible artists will appeal to that demographic, but take away the personality and the music of Bieber, and you just look at the strategy, it's genius. He releases 2 songs at a time. So over the last month, he released a new album. Then after that, he released an extended version of the album 2 weeks later. Then 2 to 3 weeks later, he released an EP separate to the 2 albums that he's done. Yeah. Then with every single day, when you go onto Justin Bieber's YouTube channel, he's putting out 3 to 4 pieces of YouTube content, mostly around the same song every single day. What he's doing is he's squeezing the lemon. And so now what I want artists to do, for any artists who are putting music out, I want you to think like this. When you go to do a music video, you're not just saying, right, I'll get there, we'll set up, we'll do a music video. You say, no. While we're there, what else can I get? If we've got someone who's shooting this, you turn to the camera and you make an advert and you say, oh, the guitarist is just retuning. Point the camera at me and you just go, hey guys, we're on the set of our new video at the moment.
Yeah.
Can't wait for it to come out. If you want to be early on this, swipe up, hit the pre-save. And then you just go, hey guys, we're on the set of our new video. The new single is out now. Swipe up, go and check it out on Spotify.
Yeah.
And then you go, hey guys, if you're on Deezer and you want to check out our new single, swipe it up. Because you've got someone who's videoing and is getting all this.
Yeah.
You can get 3 adverts. You can then say, look, it gets to the end of the shoot-ish, coming to the end of the shoot. And you just sit down and you go, let's do a quick interview. Oh, we're on the set of the new video and this is what the song means and blah, blah. All of a sudden, and the thing is even though Scooter Braun is a very rich person and Justin Bieber's a rich person, Ariana Grande is a rich person, they're still doing this. They're still going, when I go and do a live video, I'm going to do 4 songs because I can put them out as 4 pieces of content. It's not going to cost me any more apart from the editing. And so if you think the same way, you say, whilst we're making the video or a live video, why don't we make a live video of the last song? Because all the rest of my songs are still assets. So, that last song that we did a month ago, let's bring it back. And so, here's our new single. Next day, here's a live video of our old song. Why not? It's still an asset. It still gets used. And so that becomes this very clever way of squeezing the lemon and saying, it doesn't cost as much as we think because I'm going to make 4 videos in one and 3 adverts for the same price.
Yeah, and there's going to be a whole generation of coming through who don't really hold any regard to the album. They don't really have the concept of the album. Because as soon as they've been in the industry, it's about content. It's about, we've written a song, but we're not going to wait until we've got 5 songs. We're just going to put it out now, and then we'll just write more and just keep putting it out. And there's the fact that big bands when they were on tour back in the day would I'll say like Metallica when they were on the Black Album tour, they would play South America and then they would get reports through saying, okay, so since we did South America, we've sold another 2.5 million records. So even if we play just to those people, it's still worth going back again.
Absolutely.
And that's a concept that doesn't exist anymore.
Especially if you look at our kind of, we're in the UK. The UK is a very small place to tour. I've done very, very many tours in the UK, and where I'm in Brighton, you can't go down, you fall off. So when you go upwards, 10 hours, you're in a different country.
Yeah.
4 hours that way, you're in another country. Whereas in the US, you could start touring from left to right. And by the time you get from one end to the other, you can start again. So you can just go round and round and round. And the world's a big place.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of money to be made. And more importantly, there's a lot of fun to be had. One thing that's quite interesting is we talk quite a lot about, the hard parts, content, building audiences, making money. But I also personally think this is about experiences. As a musician, I want to go on tour. It's brilliant.
It's fun. It's probably the most fun thing that you will do.
Absolutely. And you get to that point where you're with the same musicians and, and after a couple of years, you just think, if you breathe like that again, I'm going to stab you in the face with a fork. But at the same point, you become this little family and it's fun.
Yeah.
And, and so we have to think about the fun aspect. We have to think about, why are we doing this? Because if you're just stuck in a bedroom going, it's a lot of work it's a lot of work. So, when someone says, oh, should I pay that money to get that mix? Well, not because it's better, because you get to sit at a dinner table in 10 years time and go, I remember this one time, if I think about, if I ask you about the last music project you did or your first band and stuff, all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, let me tell you this one time. I remember this thing. Yeah. That's what we live for. No one's there being like, cool, I tell you what, I remember this one time, 3 pieces of content in one day. No one's doing that.
That's so true.
Everyone's thinking, hey, we did this one thing in the studio, or, and people, whenever I do talks and stuff, people want to talk about a couple of gigs that I've done. And it's like, I've done 2,000 gigs. and how many of those gigs did I do where I was standing next to, Clapton and Pete Townsend and Dave Gilmour on the same stage? One. What about the other 1,999? They're just CV moments. But I can tell you what, I can remember the time where I fell asleep under many tables and because I'm on tour and I'm tired and I'm living from Red Bull and or energy drinks and pasties from a service station. But that's what I remember. Those are the fun bits, when you go and play those great gigs, you look back at those and go, oh, I tell you what, let me, a song, a tale I can tell my friends, my family when I'm old and I've stopped doing this. I want us to live for those moments because they're fun. I want to put out music because we enjoy it. I want someone to come to us and say, I love that new song that you've done, because that's what this should be about. Not numbers. I want, there's an interesting thing that happened the other day where someone I follow, a kind of friend of mine, he just sung one of his songs on Instagram, and he did it just as a little video. So I said to him, "Can you put it on Spotify? Because I can't listen to it in the car on Instagram." And he said, "Oh, no, Spotify is where I put that's my library. That's where I put my music." And I was like, "Yeah, but I want to listen to this one." And he said, "Yeah, but I'm recording it, so it'll be on Spotify." I was like, "Oh no, I don't want the recorded version. I want that version of you singing it live on piano. It was just really lovely." He was like, "I don't want to put that on Spotify." And I was like, "You're not giving me what I want. I want to listen to, I'm here for you. I'm trying to listen to your song, but you won't let me." And it's those sort of traditions that, when I said to him, "I love this song," I knew he was like, "Well, this is great. Someone really likes my stuff."
Yeah, I've seen bands where they've put like demos of songs on and they've got almost as many hits as the actual song.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they've got different lyrics, or it's missing it has a different bridge or a different intro. People love that stuff.
Creative. Yeah, absolutely. When you start thinking about all the creative things you can do out of tradition, like imagine if this was your release. Okay, imagine if no one does this. Here's an idea. Imagine if Friday, instead of releasing one video, right, you make 5 videos of the same song, but instead of being like, the video story for 3 minutes, the video story lasts 5 songs. And at the end of the first video, it says "to be continued." And you have to come back on Saturday to watch the second part of these 5 things, like a Netflix documentary. By the time you get to Wednesday and or Tuesday, and you've gone, "I've missed the first part. I have to go back and I have to watch all of the other videos." When I've seen Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm going to have to watch Monday and Tuesday. By the time it gets to the end of the week, I've heard the song 5 times. What am I going to listen to in the car? The song. It keeps going in. I've heard it. But we're not thinking of creativity. We're not thinking, "Hey, do you know what? My mate's an artist. Let's bring him in and get them to sing a verse, just so we can make a video, just for that." And just be like, "Do you know what? We released a song, but we brought Joe in and Joe's singing in the chorus. Why? Just thought it was a fun thing to do." It's another reason to talk about the song, another reason to make content.
Yeah. And going back to like playing live, one thing I found was the way things are now about the importance of touring was, and selling merchandise was one of your main things these days. It forced us to be really good live. Like it was,
absolutely.
It was almost like but it was also fun and what we loved doing. So it wasn't that difficult, but the time to sort of like in your rehearsals, practice, like, what do you say between songs? How does one song go to another? Putting on a show rather than it just being, because people are paying to see us play. So it was like, rather than just being 4 guys on stage playing songs, it's like people are going to see a show.
Yeah, absolutely. And that to me is, when it comes to, obviously I've seen many bands and up and coming artists live. And, I think as you start, the more you can play live, the more practice you get, the better you're going to become as a musician, the more employable you are. From a show point of view, I still do this with some of the bands that I work with, sitting down and cutting out, like writing all the songs down on a set and then cutting them down and starting to shape up with a set list. And the amount of times you'd look at a band set and you'd say, "I've just figured something out. You don't have a very good opening song. You need to write an opening song." Rather than saying, "What's the best song to start with?" you say, no. Go and write one. Go and write me a "Let Me Entertain You," or go and write me a "Won't Get Fooled Again," or go and write me a "I Predict a Riot," where you just walk on stage and you've got the crowd in the palm of your hand. You can do those things, but only if you practice. Only if you.
Yeah.
I guess it all comes down to.
I love that. What Dave Grohl, the song "Space," I think it's on their second album, the Foo Fighters. He said in Europe all the audiences bounce. He's like, we didn't have a song that kind of captured that. So he was like, "Well, what tempo is that?" So he watched a video and he like got a metronome what the pace was, and he's like, "Boom, down, down." He wrote a whole song based on that, and that became Space. It was crazy.
So good, such a good idea. So yeah, I feel like we're in a time now. One thing I feel like with artists with this time is that nobody wants to polish up the craftsmanship of the live stuff or of social media. It's like, I've got this song, how do I put this out and get 1 million people to hear it? Instead of saying, hang on, how do I make 100 songs so that I know that by the time I get to the 100th song, I'm very, very good. I'm a very good songwriter. Yeah. I'm very good at releasing it. Same thing with ads. People are like, "Oh, Facebook ads don't work." And I'm like, really? Facebook ads don't work? Like Nike will go and spend $3.8 billion, but they don't work. Could it be maybe that it's not Facebook ads? But at the same point, when you try something once, the same way as my mum picks up my bass and just goes, well, this doesn't work. It's like, the bass is fine, mum. I promise you. It's just, you can't play it yet.
I think a lot of things are attention to detail, though. People aren't
absolutely
like, if I did an advert campaign and it didn't work, I'd be finding out why. Like, you can Google stuff, you can watch stuff on videos on YouTube about how to do things. Like, don't just assume it didn't work, so therefore it's you shouldn't do it.
Yeah, and you just practice and practice. The same way as, if this was sport, we'd practice. If this was an instrument, we'd practice. I mean, how many hours did you put in playing guitar? Like when you were a kid?
Hours.
All of them. All of them, isn't it?
Yeah,
like it's like
pretty much all of them. Come home from school, play, like, put music on and just play along.
15 years old, you get up, you put your t-shirt on, you put your guitar on, you start playing until your mum tells you to stop. And half the time she goes, food's ready, and you're walking in and you're playing and you're just like, I'm off I go, and I'm still playing. That's that. But why can't we do the same thing with releasing music? Why can't we do the same thing with these Facebook ads? Why can't we become slightly, just with the attention to detail? Why can't we start to become obsessed with how to get the best release, the best song, the best live show? If we can do that, things because I hear all the time, oh, things are really noisy. And I'm like, well, they are noisy, but at the same point, they've always been noisy. In 1996, if you sent your CD to EMI Music, do you think someone was just sat there going, oh, thank God you've arrived? I haven't had a CD. It's like they're probably getting 500 CDs a day. And so it's not like it's any different. It just feels noisier because we used to get so much organic reach, and it physically feels like we're not seeing the growth. But you go and put $50 into an advert, 50 quid into an advert, you'll get thousands and thousands of people who will see that advert. That's good value for money, and that's a lot of people. Now, getting people to do something about what you've asked them to do, that's experience and expertise and and trial and error and testing. But the actual system, like, it's no different to what it's ever been. I mean, unless you started music in like 1951 and it was like, there aren't many bands out at the moment.
So your content, where are you getting? Because you're quite rapid with your content. Where's your funnel for all your ideas to put out?
Mostly having conversations with people like you.
Okay. Right.
I think, from an ideas point of view, I think it's really important. In DKMBA, we have this sort of community, and I'm in it every single day. I'm listening to the problems. So I'm listening to the problems of musicians, of artists who are having struggles. And because the music industry is changing every day and social media is changing every day, the problems change pretty much every day, give or take, over a period of time. And so the more I can talk to musicians and listen and help them figure it out, the more I can go, there's a video there, we can go and make something. And so, but it's it's still very much a case of, it's there for the taking. Our job is to navigate your skill set, your time. If you've got money, your release is different if you don't have money. If you've got time, your release is different if you don't have time. So everything, if you're good at writing or good at videoing or just happen to be incredibly attractive, or any of these things, they all go into a slightly different type of release. But listening and working with people is the way to try and go, that there's a problem that we need to solve.
So the DKMBA, the Damian Keyes Music Business Academy. So how do artists, if an artist was like looking for some guidance, how do you work with them?
So, I mean, it's DKMBA started purely because I was so frustrated with YouTube and getting, burnout with doing these sort of 5 tips videos and saying a lot of the same things, and coming from a teaching background, I like the idea of sitting with someone and saying, if you want to get good, you can't just go, this is the major scale, that's done, let's work on the minor scale, right, that's done. It's like, it's going to take a lot of time. And that, like you said, genius is attention to detail. And so DKMBA started like that. How can we make in-depth courses? I don't care about the 90% of people that will just go and want 3 minutes in, 3 minutes worth of YouTube video. I want someone who's prepared to sit and actually take stuff in and practice and watch an hour-long video. So we started making these courses. So we've got like the big bulky course is called the Roadmap to 1 Million Streams. It's 8.5 hours, everything from how you build your social media, how you release, how you do adverts, everything that's in there. Then a bunch of other courses that are around that in different fields, Facebook advertising to other stuff. And there's a community, which is closed Facebook for the members. And then I do a live session like this twice a week. It's just a chance that I can work as close as possible, because when I was at BIMM, that was the one thing that I love doing. I like sitting with musicians and problem solving and helping with musicians to try and get to, trying to solve problems and get their music out. That's the key to it. And so everything is just in one website where I can just I can work with the serious musicians, and anyone who just wants to kind of, just play and do their own thing. I've got no problem if someone says, I'm not interested in building a big audience or making money, but I think there's lots of artists that just, they want a bigger audience. They want to be able to tour bigger places. They want to just push themselves and see how far they can take it.
Yeah.
And that's exciting.
So you can work with artists on specific things to like tailor to their needs?
Yeah, on the live sessions. So every single week we have 2 live sessions where in the community, it'll be like ask some questions, and someone, we have regulars that come in twice a week, and some people just pop in when they've got a problem, and someone say, here's my issue, this is what I'm doing, what do you think? And we can discuss it. Sometimes they will put it back into the community. People will be in the chat, so they're discussing it as well. So, and with the annual, on the annual subscription, it means that we've got to get my phone number. So I get inundated with messages where people are like, how does this work?
Yeah.
So, it is very much about structuring my day around, meetings and content and stuff, but I just love it. It's brilliant.
I was going to go back to your books that you put out. Obviously, when did the social media one come out?
So that was the first book. I think that was 2017. I think it was 2000.
So do you think much has changed since then?
Everything has changed.
I was going to say
Literally
everything.
everything.
We need like a second edition.
Thought about it so many times. It was one of those things where I just kind of put it out and I was just like, ha, and then a week later something happened. And I remember going, oh, I wish I put that in the book.
Yeah.
And it just cropped up. And that's why, with the Stop Selling Music book, which was more for musicians and making a career, in my head, that was like, well, this isn't going to change. Little bits of it will change, but with social media, things change every 5 minutes. So,
but that still holds up.
Yeah, I believe so, because
it's more about the principle of what you were saying.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, different vehicle, but, a different vehicle, same racetrack. So, I think those things will always stay the same. So I feel like that one holds up relevant. Social media will change. Maybe I'll do another one. I probably won't.
Yeah. I was going to ask, do you think you would? Was it a case of them approaching you to do it, or did you want to do it?
They approached me. There was a publishing company that approached me, and at the time I was like, I can barely write English. How am I going to write a book? But at the time I was like, then I thought about it. I was like, it'd be quite fun to write a book. And then, so I kind of went and found someone and said, look, I've never written a book, but can you help me? And she basically helped me with structuring it. And
that's what I was going to ask. Where do you begin?
I think it's like an album. I think you start off with just saying, look, well, let's just, if you're going to write some songs, let's start off with things like titles and subject matter. If I was writing a song, it would still be metronome, what tempo, what's the title, what's the subject matter, because then I've done the hard work in what the song is going to be. I'm not going to just sit there and just start noodling around and see what I come up with.
Yeah, and
so that was the structure, was this kind of like this sort of spine of the book, and then we kind of fleshed it from there. But it's a lot of work to write a book, I found.
Yeah. How long did it take?
6 months, I think. Okay. 6, 7 months to write a book. I mean, I'm sure people could write them in a week, but I'm just not that smart. So for me, it took about 6 months, and I might write another one at some point. But
I think you definitely could.
Do you think? Every hour, I just love spending it. Like when I'm actually sitting there talking with musicians in DKMBA, I'm just like, this is the life. I just love it.
Yeah, you could probably base one around the DKMBA.
Yeah, possibly. I do think I will write another one. I just feel like I need to have that kind of bit between my teeth where I just go, right. I'll read some Seth Godin blog and be like, yeah, I'm going to write another book.
Yeah. No, I've read both of them front to back a few times. I really. Oh yeah, the social media one, things have changed when you read it, but the Stop Selling Music one is very current and I agree. It took me a while to read it to sort of come around to what you were saying, and it makes total sense of like people spending money on stuff that they shouldn't be spending money on anymore.
Yeah,
like get 1,000 CDs done.
Yeah, and they live under the bed.
Yeah. I mean, do some of them because you do sell them at gigs. No question. Absolutely. But like reassess where your money should go. Like put more emphasis on PR and advertising campaigns. I think that was for a while. People were like, I shouldn't be spending money on that, but really you should.
Yeah, let's get the name out. Let's build the brand. When people know who you are, they'll buy into you, and at that point, you can build the audience.
Yeah. So what I was going to ask you, did you dabble with a podcast for a while?
I'm talking about it at the moment. I haven't
Because
actually
that's
done
my
it yet.
area of expertise.
Is it? And I'll be coming to you and being like, how does this work? What microphone do I need for a start?
Yeah, because you did. I was subscribed to one. You did like an episode or two. I saw, but
Yeah, I think we tried something, but it was one of those. Same thing with all the social media I do. It's like, let's give it a go and see if I can get this and find the time for it. I think that's the biggest thing is if I want to do something, I want to do it properly. So finding the time is the key. So,
but I also think a lot of the videos, the audio could go out as a podcast, even though they're just a few minutes.
I'd like that. Yeah,
there's different people. Lots of people like short, easy, consumable ones as well as the super long interview ones as well.
I do get asked a lot on YouTube. People are like, I'm at the gym. I haven't got a YouTube subscription. Can you put it on Spotify or can you put it somewhere?
It's like you asking your mate to put his song on Spotify because you can't listen to it. It's the same principle.
It's so same thing. Yeah, you're right. Right, I'll do it. Promise.
You should. Just because sometimes you might have an opportunity to interview someone.
Yeah.
In your line of work, so that would make a great podcast.
We are working on that actually. We're working on that as a part of the DKMBA thing of just going and finding a bunch of people in the industry that we can talk to. Cool. And
do you know Marc Asquith?
I do know Marc. Yeah.
He was my previous guest.
Was he? Oh, he's a great guy.
He is the guy to talk to.
Is he? Right, I'll do that.
He's the guy. He's the main man.
Lovely.
He's done very well for himself. His podcasting company is becoming one of the biggest in the world.
Oh right.
So I'll definitely get in touch with him.
I'll give him a shot.
How do you know him?
I did a talk. I did a talk a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I thought it was just going to be like, go and do a talk. I do talks all the time. I thought it was going to be like 50 people, 60 people, and I walked in, there was like 1,500 people. I was like, oh, but he was so lovely, such a lovely guy.
Yeah. So definitely talk to him.
Right,
so what have you got like going at getting out of lockdown? What's going to obviously you're going to be moving, but what's like work wise? What's going to is much going to change?
I still feel like I've got, I feel like I've got 100 courses of ideas left in for DKMBA. I feel like I've got a bunch of ideas. I want to, also want to have things like, an EPK in DKMBA. So you've got some way of pushing yourself out. There's so many ideas that we've got. It's just a case of building them over time, one thing at a time. But I'm never short of ideas. It's mostly just, implementation and getting them all sorted one thing at a time. But first things first, finally get to America because it has been a pause button for the last 15 months. And then, don't know, after that, we'll see what 2022 holds as well.
So will you take some artists completely under your wing then and maybe guide them from the beginning through?
I'd like to at some point. Yeah. I mean, I think everyone's got a different skill set. I remember seeing an interview with Seth Godin and he was like, look, I'm an author. That's what I do. So people tell me, why didn't you go and do this? And he's like, because I like writing books.
Yeah.
And I think, I feel like I'm an educator more than anything else. I think when it comes to actually managing, I think I'm a pretty lousy manager because of my people skills.
Yeah.
But I think I can educate. So I feel like that to me is the bit I like to do.
Because I think if you would be able to like document some of that journey with a few artists through what you've helped them through or advice you've given that they've taken and what the results of that are, that's stuff that all musicians would pay attention to.
Absolutely. That would be fun, and doing things and just also to experiment. I think that would be creative and fun. So who knows? So many ideas.
So when we went to the very first lockdown, what was the impact of that for you, for like work wise and life?
It was horrific. It was absolutely horrific. So I have a management company with 30 bands, and we had 20. We have an agency, which is a big agency in the UK, and we had nearly 30 members of staff, which is now down to about 9. Hopefully, we'll be able to build it back up. Yeah. Everyone was furloughed. Everyone was loads of redundancies. I had about 120 musicians messaging me every 5 minutes saying, "What's happening?" And I was like, to know. I've got no idea.
Nobody knew.
It's like a zombie apocalypse. So it was bad. It was really bad. But it looks like the next couple of months there's some green shoots. So I'm hoping that all of 2020 is now pushed into the end of 2021, and it becomes, from an events point of view, hopefully it becomes party time and everyone's really excited about it. So fingers crossed. I'm hoping that. I just hope we're through the worst of it, because it's been a tough time for musicians. Musicians got hit harder than anybody else because
I also felt they got the least support as well.
I totally agree. It was so unfair. It was like, it was just, all my best friends were just waiting, just sat waiting. So many musicians
Yeah.
had to move back in with their parents at the age of 30. And I was like, this is horrible.
You know for a fact that there's a huge number of people who've just given up on the whole thing and we've lost them.
Yeah. I mean, I've got, out of the musicians I hired, probably 20%, 30% just went off to become something completely different.
Yeah, and like you've probably heard some of their stuff, and you know they're great at what they do, but they've just the circumstances have just dictated that they've had to leave.
100% sad. So hopefully, 2021 hopefully will be more positive, and hopefully it will just build. Hopefully we'll see some new exciting things that'll come out of it.
Yeah. So your social media, I see on Instagram. Did somebody already had Damian Keyes then?
They did. So how can someone have Damian Keyes? How many Damian Keyeses are there in the world? So I had to go with Damian Keyes one. Interesting thing though,
because at the time I was just,
I did. I messaged him, and I think he had too many pictures of his kids, so he was like, nope. So I was like, okay, fine. It wasn't even something I thought of at the beginning. I was like, oh, fine, I'll have Damian Keyes one. And now I'm like, should have got the set.
To be fair though, once you get to a certain point down the line, it doesn't really matter that much.
Nah,
I think your content speaks for itself more than anything.
As long, if my name was John Smith, it'd be different. But I think you can find me nice and easy. Most people spell my name wrong anyway. So
yeah, they missed that. I bet they put Keys as in without the second E.
Yeah, or E in Damien. So I'm just like,
yeah, of course.
Whatever people call me, I'm like, yeah, fine.
So what else do you do outside of all of this? If you do ever get any time,
that's it.
Nothing.
I mean, no. At the moment, the last 12 months has been full on. It's been literally just this. This has been it. So, but I'd like to. The traveling has been a big part of it because we have been able to kind of live in different places. But not a lot really. This is what I love doing this. I think you just become obsessed with one thing and carry on doing it.
Yeah, I've been following you on Instagram and most social media for a couple of years now. But I remember thinking during this whole situation this last year, you've still managed to travel around quite a bit.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing was getting out of the UK. Because there's a lot of not fear in the UK, but we've got an American business, so it was okay for us to actually travel. But when we did, we went out. It was a lot easier when you're out of the UK. To be fair, we're in America and Mexico. Everyone's very sensible. There's still lots of restrictions, but being able to travel for work helped. But we still try and be very respectful. We still make sure that. Any quarantines, we do that. When it comes to tests, very, very different in different countries. Like in Mexico, you have a lot of tests. So we were getting tested quite a lot. When it was coming back, we've already had 4 tests from when we left to when we're here. So, we just make sure, and we also had coronavirus last year. So, we just make sure that we take as many precautions as we possibly can. And we don't really leave that much, to be fair. So, we're very we're very in the house kind of people.
Cool. Oh, it's been fantastic to talk to you, mate. I've really been.
Oh, it's been amazing.
It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, but keep in touch.
Yeah, we'll do it again. If you're ever back in the UK and you can come up north, when I get back into my studio, I think I'm going back in June. Apparently, that's what I've been told. If everything stays as it is, there's always a seat waiting for you.
100%. That'd be cool. Brilliant.
That'd be cool. So I'll put the link to all your social media and your businesses in the show notes for people to check out.
Thanks, Dave.
I've been sending people your way for quite a while now, anyway. So.
Love it. Thank you so much.
But so cheers. Thank you very much.
Thanks, dude. And cheers for having me. Thank you so much.
No worries. Speak soon.